pretty bad. I might have to change out one from each group. Okay, go ahead. Pick me a category.
Why am I always picking categories?
Somebody pick a category.
Okay, global and sovereign, whatever the word is.
Chapter 8 for 3. List all you can. Go. Cost of labor versus value of labor. What's the difference?
Cost of labor would be that companies would want cheaper labor, where value of labor is that companies would want more value for their money.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The argument is, and I had asked you this question in this sovereignty chapter, it was towards the end, what would you rather have? Do you want the cost of labor to be the most important thing, or do you want the value of labor? And oftentimes we have this tendency of thinking that if we're paying less for labor, that's the best labor that we can get because we're lower in the bottom line. The chapter says, not so fast. It's the value of labor. If it was strictly just the cost, then in fact all jobs would be going overseas, but all jobs aren't. Go ahead, France.
So you mean absolute cost versus relative cost?
Just cost of labor versus value of labor. So yeah, I guess you could argue that cost of labor is just the actual cost, but value of labor would be taking in the big picture. So it's not just cost, but it's other things like infrastructure and education and government security and things of this sort. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that companies like to invest in nations that have more stable governments and more educated workforce.
Yeah, they actually do. They actually do, and the numbers are beginning to say this. Gene, go ahead, cut it. Pick me a category, guys.
Chapter 11 for 1 point.
Chapter 11 for 1. According to the text, the confirmed countries with nukes, firsthand I see. Go ahead.
USA.
USA is 1.
Russia.
Russia.
India.
China. India.
Yeah.
Great Britain.
Great Britain.
France.
How could you miss France?
Those are the ones that are confirmed.
Those are 6.
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
Pakistan, yes, that's true. That's 7. Any others?
North Korea. There were 9.
North Korea is on the list. 8.
South Korea had them. Does not anymore.
South Korea had them.
Israel.
Go ahead, you guys have it.
Israel.
Israel is one of the other ones. They have not effectively.
South Africa had and gave it up.
South Africa had and gave it up. Go ahead, click it, Gene. According to the text, Russia, Pakistan, India, China, France, Great Britain, Israel, North Korea, United States, South Africa had them, but not anymore. And France, if you'll recall, explained the history of South Africa's cooperation with Israel. But I won't test you on that. Touch the house. Pick me a category.
As a fellow pariah state.
Zoom in on him, please.
Oh, God. My name is Mark Bressner. Thank you for joining us today. As a fellow pariah state, Israel and South Africa cooperate together on security matters, specifically their nuclear program, in which Israel tested their nuclear program off South African waters, since the Mediterranean wasn't a proper area for testing.
Hey, now I got to test you on this since he's done this.
God
the more he
damn
talks.
it, man.
Yeah, Killian's like, what am I doing in his group? Pick me a category. Gotta go, guys.
Chapter 5 for 2 points.
Chapter 5 for 2. Nature and nurture, firsthand I see.
What is this, psychology? Oh.
Go ahead. Yeah, you guys have it.
Okay, nature and nurture is like a psychology term, and nature is like innate properties that human and animals have, and nurture is what they're trained or taught.
So what is the debate about nature and nurture? What are we debating, whether it's nature or nurture?
Whether we're inherently violent.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
How much was this? Was this for 3 or 2?
2 points.
It was a 2-point question. 1, 2. Nature is the idea that we're talking about what's already inside of us, what we're born with, the way that we're biologically wired. Nurture is how we're conditioned or what we've learned. And some people would argue in terms of war, 1, 2. Some people would actually argue, no, that's what you said, that whether we're violent or not. Some people would argue that it is naturally inherent in us that we are violent. Some folks will meaning it is our nature. Some people would say that we're conditioned this way. Can you give me examples of articles that would suggest one way or the other? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Any articles?
Yeah, the one about the child terrorists that they brainwash them.
The child terrorists, explain.
That they teach them their coach, the thing that USA is evil, so they can bomb us.
Yeah.
The suicide kid bombers. that
Suicide kid bombers.
Exactly, they're taught.
I got you. So they're actually taught to do wrong things.
They were
Okay.
taught because they said you survive and the backpack will blow out and that they wouldn't be killed. All the people behind them.
And you're right. And they're taught certain things about religion that the article even suggests that aren't really religion at all. Any other examples you can think of? Nature, nurture. You guys are already out. Yeah. Remember on this, the grenade? Hiding the grenade under the baby is a good example of this. If you remember, nuking Mecca could be conceivably an example of this. Being conditioned to think that you can strike all of a particular religion by nuking Mecca. There were a lot of different examples that you could use. What do we got? 5, 10, 50, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 up here. 5, 10, 50, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 42 up here. So, Chauvinist, you just gave me the last answer. Go ahead, touch it, Gene. Pick me a category.
There's answer.
Gene, with insightful commentary. Pick me a category.
Chapter 5 for 4 points, I think.
Zoom in on Gene. This is a pressure moment right now. Get close.
Nice, man.
Dear God, Gene. This is never... Go ahead, pick me a category.
Chapter 5 for 4 points.
Chapter 5 for 4. God, will this never end? Violence versus aggression. First and by C. What's the difference? Go ahead. Martin looking over his shoulder as he raises his hand. What is the difference between violence and aggression? And examples would be appropriate in this too. 5.
Violence is
You
like,
guys have
for
it.
violence, you have a plan in mind, while aggression, there's no plan, you're just acting on like the event that's occurring. And,
So give me an example of violence.
Baguettes.
with the baguettes.
What about the baguettes?
Killing someone, or stealing baguettes to feed your family.
Yeah, violence is, and this is violence, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. The idea behind violence is basically that you're actually committing some kind of an act, but it's with a plan in mind. It's almost calculated. And the baguettes, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you rob a baguette shop to feed the starving children, some people would argue that the calculation there is you're breaking the law, you're committing that negative act, but you're doing it for a particular reason. Aggression is more instinctual. So give me the example of that.
Come home and find your wife cheating and killed.
You come home and you find your wife cheating, maybe in bed with 3 men, and then ultimately at that point, it's not that you're calculated, but in fact you're killing all of them. It's an emotional, it's a response, it's an impulse kind of a thing. Click it, Gene. Violence, use of force for planned objective, baguettes and hungry children, yeah. Aggression, instinctual use of force, killing spouse if in bed with another person. Touch the house, pick me a category, guys. Damn, Gene. Gene, I don't know what you've done. Okay.
2 points, chapter 8.
2 points, chapter 8. List all you can. Click it, Gene. Drug testing. What was the significance of drug testing? You guys have it. You'll have it next if they can't come through. What was the significance of drug testing?
Testing drugs or offering money to people in less developed countries.
Like where?
Drugs.
They weren't offering money to them.
Brazil.
Wrong.
They didn't
Brazil.
offer money.
They didn't offer money to them. Wrong.
They had to pay
They had-
for
That's
it.
right. They didn't offer money to them. That's right. -2. Go ahead. Explain it to me.
So they were charging them less money for these drugs that hadn't been tested on humans before.
Okay.
In countries like Brazil and China, since they didn't want to test them on, since the laws there
Anybody can help him.
The laws there aren't as strict as they are in the United States.
What kind of laws aren't strict?
Medical testing.
Medical human trials.
Yeah, when you think about this, in order to make a drug work, you're going to have to test it eventually on humans, right? And these are American pharmaceutical companies. So they're going to Brazil, they're going to China, they're also going to India, the article mentions, because these laws are lax. They're testing them on these folks. Now explain that first part to me again. What is it that the people are doing in order to be able to be tested?
They are pretty much paying a discounted price for.
They're paying a discounted price on these potential medications in order to be tested. And if something goes wrong, then what? Then basically nothing happens in this regard. 1, 2. Anything else you want to tell me? Go ahead. I know you want to talk, Franz.
It brings up the ethics of whether our domestic, like the process in which we test drugs domestically, is it too complicated or not? Because these companies were lobbying. If you don't want this to happen, you need to reform the testing process. It takes too long to test drugs in the United States.
That's what we talked about.
Well, that's part of the conversation.
Do y'all remember that? I don't remember that, Franz. -2. I don't remember that at all. The argument that I remember is that this kind of makes Americans seem like they're more valuable people than people in China and Brazil and India because we're going to test them on them first and then we're going to bring them back here.
That was the counter argument against that.
Yeah.
It was because we need reform in our own country because we need reform in our own country about how we pass medicine. We need. Okay.
-2. I still don't remember it. Okay, you gave me the last correct answer. Pick me a category.
But we were talking. There was another argument that you brought up during the session.
-2. Oh, God.
I'm talking to
Chapter 8,
him.
5 for 5.
Okay. Then.
Chapter 8 for 5.
Chapter 8 for 5. Oh, God, will it end? Pictionary. I need somebody to draw. Hannah, come up and draw. If you'll turn on the light and raise the screen, Gene, please.
Raise the screen, Gene.
That's what I need you to draw. Got it? Okay. 1 minute on the 11, on the 12. Gene, could you, yeah, let's go. Good.
Get closer.
I can't see the light.
You can move if you need to.
Am I blocking it?
iPhone, yeah.
iPhone. What was the significance of iPhone dealing with globalization?
We have
It was okay.
Gene, if you'll turn off the light and lower the screen, Gene.
Okay, so basically, I think
That one in.
Chinese companies were paying their workers only $16 a day to make iPhones.
I think it was 17, but I'll go with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead.
And what happened was, people, like some of the workers, were trying to commit suicide because they were jumping off buildings because it was like too much work, and it globalizes other countries because.
Okay, now let's go back to these workers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Watch that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, got it. Okay, so let's go back to these workers. They tried to commit suicide. What'd the company do?
They netted them.
They actually set up nets on the outside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
Back to work.
And they would send them right back to work after they tried to jump off of the buildings. Now here's the thing. What was the problem? And now let me come back to you, Betty. What were you getting ready to say?
The problem is.
Anybody in the group? 5, 4, 3.
It was like the working conditions. They were
Yeah.
they were forced to work all day just for $17, but $17 a day in China is okay to live on compared to anywhere else.
$17 a day in China. The article does make the point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What would people here in the United States argue needs to be done? Although not all of y'all argued this.
They need to be given more benefits.
The argument would be is that maybe we need to make working conditions better over there, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything else you want to tell me? 5.
And that means that the prices would go up.
And who would ultimately pay?
The consumer.
The argument was the consumer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The argument was is that maybe Apple should end up paying this one. And well, no, I can't give you 5. I just said that. But the idea or the basic gist of it was that were y'all really willing to pay for the iPhones? Pia was, but I remember Zach wasn't really willing to pay for these. Overall, you weren't because it's basically like I don't want to have to deal with this kind of a thing. I don't want to have to deal with it. Go ahead, pick me a category.
I'm gonna pause it.